Okay, over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'll try to address how to build up a blockchain-based community or an entity which is legally compliant in India. Let me start by saying something dramatic. India, as of right now, does not legally recognize blockchain or bitcoins. There have been lots of debates around it. It's still a very gray area. I mean, people are investing in bitcoins and blockchains and all, but still an under-regulated or not regulated market in this country as of today. There are other countries which are regulating blockchain and bitcoins, including Dubai, Singapore, US, and a few other countries. So lots of entities are being set up there and then coming out in India to do the marketing and business out here. But this is the background we should know before we head into. So whatever I'm going to do is an interpretation of the existing laws in India and how it can or will affect blockchain and the Bitcoin community at large. I think I'll skip the first two slides. I would assume most of you know what are blockchain and what are cryptos, so I don't want to take too much of time in as I said earlier, there are no specific laws in this country governing this entire area. About 3-4 years back, the only thing which came out with the Reserve Bank of India was to ban cryptocurrencies. Okay. Ban, forget, I don't want it because Reserve Bank of India, in all its wisdom, regulates all the currencies and the rupee. They didn't want anybody to compete with them. Rightly, wrongly, I'm not getting that debate, but that was the thing. The association called Internet Mobile Users Association, or Lose Association, then filed a case against RBI in the Supreme Court against this ban of RBI, and Supreme Court did away with the ban. So technically, even though crypto or Bitcoin, that ban has been removed, is still not regulated. However, to add to that, even though the government of India does not want to regulate it, it still wants to earn out of it. And how does it do that? In the recent budget,
30%.
right. So, well, can you tax industry which is not legally recognized? Is still an issue. Or is it legally recognized and yet you're taxing it? That's a debate I'm not going to get into, but that's what the reality of the situation is as of right now. Okay, what are the applications for these blockchain? And over the last half an hour, 40 minutes, I've been having this debate with some of the members of this group who approached me. Money transfers, financial exchanges, lending, insurance, real estate, transaction where you execute smart contracts and property can be transferred from one person to another without actually putting the sub-registrar's office. Debate out here is how will be the stabilization fee because the government doesn't want to lose out on the revenue. Can hacking be stopped? Because if people can hack their transaction, then somebody can hack into the system and become owners of large properties, including Andheri, without Mukesh Ambani knowing it. So there are lots of issues around it, but these are the applications which are available today. I'll skip this. I think everyone knows what a cryptocurrency is. I will not get into the details of it. Ultimately, just remember one thing, cryptocurrency is not a currency, it's not money. Okay, it's actually a computer algorithm which has a value to it. Whether it's 1 rupee or 100 rupees or 5 lakhs or 5 crore, that's debatable, depending on demand and supply like any other market economic scenario. The price of this cryptocurrency, as I said, is arbitrary, unless it's asset backed, right? Where some of the times that when Reapp is trying to do have assets or things back it up, so then the price will not have to depend on the value of that asset which is being thing. So it technically comes out as a derivative rather than anything else. Virtual currencies are like Bitcoin, which is state-free because I can click the button and transfer anywhere I want to whoever I want without taking the approval of any entity like your bank or asking anybody's permission to do it. Today, if I have to transfer my money from one account to your account, I still have to get virtually, I still have to get the OTP and the bank's approval to do it. Without that, I can't do it, right? In this case, I don't need to do all that. Click a button, everything gets done off, right? So that is something we should understand. So as I was saying, it removes the need of a trusted third party, such as a government authority, agency, bank, any third party which backs it as a legal tender. So as I said, we are now going to understand which laws may be applicable to this sector because there is no one particular law applicable to it, and how we can interpret that in the case of blockchain, especially bitcoins and cryptos. Quite a few of them: Constitution of India, Reserve Bank of India, FEMA, RBI, Coinage Act, SCI, Sales of Goods Act, and many more. There were lots of other things which I am not going to cover today because of lack of time and everything else. Okay, now by the constitution it mandates that only the central government can make laws on coins and currency, fundamentally. So the state of Maharashtra cannot make any law related to this. It has to be made by the parliament. What does the RBI do? It is to regulate currency and keep a monetary stability in the country. So that's why you see the monetary policy announced every 6 months, increase rates and blah blah blah, interest rates and all that stuff is linked to monetary policy. If we have a parallel economy like virtual currency, will that get not affected? Yes, it would. So that's why the RBI wants to ban it or regulate it, which till date is not very clear what the status is. The RBI Act under Section 2 mandates that only RBI has the right to issue currency. Okay? If you see the notes which is said, is issued by the Reserve Bank of India, not by the Indian Bank, not by the government. And it bears the signature of the Governor of Reserve Bank of India, not the Finance Ministry. Correct? So that is what is currency. Understand that? So the central government technically has no role to play in the issuance of currency. And because of this definition which you see under section 22, Bitcoin is not a currency because it is not defined under section 2 as currency of RBI. So if Bitcoin is not a currency, then what is it? Okay, let's go on to FEMA now. FEMA defines currency, foreign currency, anything apart from Indian currency. Now, if it's not Indian currency, Bitcoins will be deemed to be foreign currency. I'll leave that question open. Bottom line is, virtual currencies like Bitcoin are not being designated by the government or by RBI or any government authority to be legal tender, and that's what the position is as of date. So today, if people are accepting it, is more for barter than actually a currency being exchanged. Okay, where I'll give you one bottle of water, will give you something in exchange for that, except for money. That's what we call barter. That's cannot be used as a currency. Okay, now the FEMA defines currency notes, which includes cash in forms of coins and banknotes, and this definition again does not include cryptocurrency. Okay. Now under section 3 of FEMA, it prohibits anybody to deal with foreign currency or make any payment for to or for the any person outside India in any manner whatsoever. So it's not that I can buy Bitcoin here in Indian rupee and transfer that Bitcoin to somebody outside India. That technically will be a violation under FEMA. Because that Bitcoin is acting as a form of payment to a person outside the country. So technically, according to me, it's in violation of FEMA. So if people are transferring any Bitcoins or any form of that, by click of button to a person outside this country, you are technically, according to me, violating FEMA. Because only people who can do that or receive that as per FEMA authorized person, like the foreign exchange dealers, as authorized by RBI or the government of India. Then the next question somebody asked me sometime back, would it not be a security or a derivative? Security Contract Act, Section 2H defines securities as shares, scrips, stocks, bonds, debentures, or other marketable securities of a like means any incorporate body or another body corporate. Bitcoin is a decentralized entity. It's not linked to one entity or one body corporate. Therefore, technically, it's not a commodity. Derivative is a derivative of what we define our shares thing, like a mutual fund unit. It's a collection of shares, right? So you get a one unit of mutual fund means you got a part of that. So therefore, technically again, this would not come under a security or a derivative. Now, Section 23 of the Indian Contract Act makes dealing with or anything which is illegal, when you translate that concept, that contract itself is deemed to be illegal or void as issue. Now the question here is whether a Bitcoin is illegal or not recognized by law, or what is it? I don't have an answer to that, so don't ask me that. Okay. Because on one hand, the government is taxing that commodity, second hand is not recognized under any law, or not is making any attempt to make any regulation for that. So for me, I mean, the way the government of India is acting in this era as of date is, I mean, very grayish. I'm not too sure where they're heading. Even though they have launched a paper to launch a digital currency sometime in the future, I think it's already launched. But whether Bitcoin or stuff comes into that, I'm not too sure right now. Now, why I'm bringing up this Prevention of Money Laundering Act is if I'm doing any transfer under FEMA or to a foreign party through Bitcoins or crypto or blockchain, whatever form you may call it, it means I am technically transferring something of value outside the country and therefore probably doing money laundering. Probably, I'm not saying you are, but probably. So that may hamper your Money Laundering Act and may get you triggered. And remember, this act is a criminal offence, it's not a civil offence. So if you do something under this act and CBI and FEMA inquiry comes in and ED, then you're behind the bar for some time. Okay. If somebody, not that then no Bitcoins are in this country, there are lots of people who launched it, lots of people doing cryptocurrency, lots of people own cryptocurrency exchanges in this country. Correct? And I think quite a few of you guys, at least I don't deal with cryptos at all as an investor, but I believe some of you guys do. You would need to still comply with the KYC form on the norms as provided by the RBI and various things. That includes giving your Aadhaar card number, your PAN, your passport copy, and blah blah blah, which you need to know so that in case anything goes wrong, we are able to trace you back where that money went to. Can crypto be defined as a commodity? Okay. As per me, it cannot be defined as a commodity. Okay, because it's not recognized as per under the Commodities Exchange Act. Okay, it's an algorithm, it's not a commodity technically. Correct? So therefore, according to me, cryptos can also not be treated as a commodity. I've already covered cross-border transactions. FEMA, FDI, though is again very grey area, whether it can be allowed to in cryptos or bitcoins or blockchain, yes or no, but still a very grey area. There's some evidence which have come into this area and people are transacting based on that, but I mean, it's a very, very grey area for me. People are tweaking the laws or stretching it to fit into that perfection, but for me it's still a very, very grey area. Taxation in crypto. Finance ministry has to take a meat or pie, right? Whether you do illegal stuff or recognized or unrecognized stuff. Now, there are two types of tax which is there. One is the income tax, and sorry, it should not be the, and two is the GST, goods and services tax. So both taxes are now made applicable to buying and selling of cryptos or bitcoins. So whenever there's a profit, there's one blanket rate of 30% payable to the government of India. But if there's a loss, you don't get a set off. Like other businesses, if there's a loss, you get set off. Here there's no set off because this is all what they call speculation. It's not a trading business. Okay? This speculation. That's how they defined it. The FFB is 30% tax, like a lottery. Simple, no question asked. And GSTs are, I think, in the 18% bracket if you're trading in this cryptos. Now, I think I just define what business knowledge is. So that, in a nutshell, is what your blockchain law says or how is applicable in this. Now, the next few minutes, I will just advise or take you through how to set up a business entity if you want to trade or do work in the crypto or the Bitcoin or blockchain area. How do you start one? I mean, this is a generic conversation. It can be made applicable to any kind of business, but more specific. When you're setting your own business, there are 4 or 5 fundamental questions that people need to ask before you decide on the kind of structure and the kind of location, everything else which you need to do. One, where to set up, location. 2, what type of organization, that's a business question which you'll answer. Then the procedure for setting up that organization. What are the post, you set up the organization, what are the process you do post setting up the organization, and what are the continuous essentials for the business on a year-to-year basis, what you need to do once the business is set up. So first question, where to set up. That's a commercial decision, not a legal decision. It will obviously depend on the nature of the business you're doing and to where your target customers are. That's where your primary location should be. Now, what type of organization? There are 4 types of basic business legal structures which are created in this country or allowed as per the various laws. One is a company. Company, again, there are 2 types: a listed company on a stock exchange, and 2 is a private company. I'm not going to go into distinction, but just be with a public company or private company. Then is a limited liability company, which is only a few years old, one of the most recent type of organization which has come into existence. Then is a partnership, and the 4th, the most easiest to do, is a sole proprietorship concept. See, a company is technically registered under Companies Act 2030. The separate legal entity distinct from the shareholders and directors and it's got limited liability. The ideal way of doing business. Okay, not the ideal way, it's the second most ideal way I would say. But if you want to fundraise and stuff, then it's the ideal way to get into. There's no limit as to the number of shareholders you can have in a company. It can be any number you choose to. What the basic features of the company are: it's a body corporate that means the owners and the entity are totally distinct. Owners are known as shareholders. Company is managed by the directors of BOD, board of directors. There has to be minimum 2 shareholders and minimum 2 directors. Registration is required to form a company with the rest of companies. Every shareholder owns a share in the capital company, depending on the capital which he puts in, proportional shares he gets. Company is recognized and regulated by the Companies Act 2013, so it's heavily regulated, and if it's a listed company, then even the SEBI gets involved. And suited for medium and large scale operations. So that's what basically a company is. Then the LLP, which is my favorite form of doing a business entity, because I believe this is more tax efficient in the hands of the owners of property, in the hands of the owners of business. It's like a partnership but with a limited, it's a cross between a company and a partnership. Right? 2 partners, separate entity, limited liability. Less for compliance work, less regulated than what a company is. Again, it is a body corporate. Instead of shareholders, also you've got partners. It is recognized by the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 20 something. Registration is required to form an LLP. No limit to the maximum number of partners. There has to be 2 partners. Liability of the partner limit to the share capital which they put in the company. Beyond that, there is no liability. And suitable for all types of operation, you can take it to any limit. So that's what LLP is. Then is a partnership like an LP, but it doesn't have limited liability. It doesn't need to be registered anywhere, but we advise you to get registered with the rest of firms under the Partnership Act. No compulsory requirement. It's not a body corporate, so whoever the partners are equally liable for the business of the thing. Registration is optional, but we as a law firm advise you to get it done. The biggest disadvantage of this entity is the liability of the partners is unlimited. So if the partnership firm runs a debt of let's say 5 crores, if the partnership firm is not able to pay it, then the partners have to make good from their own pockets and their own personal assets. Suitable for small and medium scale operation, but the liability will not be very huge. Sole proprietorship, instead of partnership, is a sole owner, one single owner can do it. Easy to form, no registration required except for getting a GST registration done, which I talked about. The owner is the king of business. मैं जो हूँ मैं ही हूँ, बाहर में जाए कोई और, okay? That kind of attitude. Liability of the owner is unlimited. So whatever the business does, all the profit belongs to him, all the losses belong to him. And owner is responsible for managing the business. Procedure for setting up, I'm not going much into it, that's more of a legal process. Company obviously does 6 steps to be kept in confidence again to start the business. AMA, filing the ROC approvals, quite a few of them. In a partnership, you can form a partnership agreement and get that registered with either LLP or a normal partnership. And proprietorship, no formal procedure. Business you can start even right now while we speak. Once you set up the entity, then you formalize just the beginning. In order for further action should be taken. The 4 primary things you need to do is take an office space or work from home. Virtually also not good at purpose to do that from home also.
Excuse me, 1 second.
Like how the people call my lunch meeting. Okay.
But you are doing great. The people were interested.
Then
They are from college and they had to catch batch and
no, that's it. So you either take an office or you work from home. COVID has taught us to work from home if you can, work on virtual offices, or you work in a co-working space like this, depending on your budgets and your costs and everything else. I mean, if you're taking your own office, you need to electricity and other connection and telecom and internet connection to kickstart. Most importantly, get your bank accounts open so that you can operate and receive and send out money. The three main tax thing is obtain a PAN number, your GST and your TAN. TAN is for TDS deduction. PAN is for tax filing and GST is for tax filing. And if there is any business specific approval, lots of business needs specific approvals. For the airline industry, needs approval of the airport authority and everything else. For insurance broking, need the IRD approval. Blockchain, as of that, no approvals are required. But in case something gets regulated in the future, you may have additional approvals required. But if you're like getting into fractional ownership or real estate, then you would need to go to RERA and other places. So, depending on what kind of blockchain you're doing, there will be industry specific approvals which you may need. Then obviously having a manpower, you need a kind of manpower to run your own business. So that's where you decide what kind of manpower and how many and everything. And the continuous association after you've set up an entire thing. One, compliance of all applicable laws, filing your tax returns on a year-to-year basis, maintains your books of account and payroll. There are three essential things we're talking about, many more, but just giving the key highlights. And how we can help you is set up entire, what we talked about, set up entire package for you guys and take it for you guys. And we're happy to take any questions. I think we just put that for the panel discussion.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Thank you so much. Give us some of the presentation. What kind of requests do you get?
I don't request you're getting from actually very few of them actually getting into this business model as of right now. But whatever we can is to set up the entities and IP and IP protection. What our brother mentioned in our presentation. And how do we protect how do we do blockchain deep technology in a compliant way? And as I explained earlier, is the blockchain as a thing is not regulated in the country as of right now. And especially the areas of crypto. So all the crypto exchanges and all which are there, the blockchain entities are there, even though technically it's legally, since it's not illegal to do it, it's not regulated. So for us to actually advise on how to set up it on a regular platform is very difficult, as long as it's not doing anything legal or not going anti any of the existing laws.
It should not be anti any of the existing laws, otherwise it's great.
Yeah.
It's all in great. You can't be sure.
You can't be sure, so that's what we are saying, don't do this. We normally other industries we say do X, Y, Z. Also we say don't do A, B, C.
Yeah.
So that's the way we actually advising clients on this kind of platforms, on how to go about to handle the so-called potential risk management or business sources.
In general, what I was seeing was past years, there was a lot of demand for, let's say, creating ICOs, and still many people want to issue their tokens. Most of these tokens are securities. What do you do when you get such kind of request, like they want to issue a security? Would you recommend them not to try that in India at all, or not to do that ever?
What we are telling the people is not to try them in India, move to Dubai and Singapore, where it's recognized and regulated. So at least you have some form of regulation, some form of regulation by one international government or some independent state. And then that commodity which you do in ICC or whatever there, I can subscribe to it in India. Because in India can invest, as an investor up to $200,000 or $300,000, forget the number, in business ventures per year outside the country. legally. So the idea is, if you want to attract Indian investors and you want to do this in India, investor all this in Dubai or Singapore or any sort of country where you are comfortable with, depending on what kind of business and stuff you're doing, and then get that part of India, get the Indian investors all subscribe to it. Because $200,000 per person means for a family of four about $800,000, which is a huge amount of money you can look at a family investing. So our strategy is, since India is not regulated and really can't predict whether they'll ban it tomorrow, what kind of decision could come out tomorrow, to go to Dubai or Singapore or US or the European countries where it's recognized, follow those protocols and get India.
So Indian users can still be the users of the app, or the investment, they can still invest. You can address the Indian market, while still registering the.
While investing in the company in a country where it's recognized, where blockchain and things regulated and recognized.
Coming to you, Anuradha, you mentioned about digital rights organization, and do you consult even people regarding NFTs, and what kind of requests do you get? And you see the market right now with NFTs is much, they're not backed by actual rights, and do you tell them and do they follow your advice, or do they still, what's happening in the market there?
So the first question that clients have when they come to us is what we're doing. And if it is legal, then what is the right jurisdiction to set up in, and how do we set up in that jurisdiction? That's the first question they ask, even before coming to the IP. Obviously, we advise them on a jurisdiction structure. So we do jurisdiction summary reports where we look at the client's business model and identify the top 3 jurisdictions for them depending on what they're trying to do. Anyone who's heavily into the crypto space is not setting up in India, nor are we advising them. The UAE, of course, is a good jurisdiction, but Singapore is better from an institutional investment point of view. We also have Portugal, the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Estonia. There's multiple jurisdictions, but again, it depends on what you're trying to do, what your budget is, because it's expensive to set up abroad. You have to pay our fees, then you have to pay the statutory costs that is different in every country depending on what you're trying to do. And you also have to pay the local lawyer in that country that we appoint to get the basic licenses and registrations in place. Now coming to the IP bit, yeah, there are people in India who are getting into the NFT space quite heavily, in fact, especially in the film industry actually. I've been working with producers who are looking to NFTize their films or elements of their films and sell them on NFT marketplaces. Most of these marketplaces are registered in Singapore. But that doesn't stop you from giving them the license to sell NFTs. Another issue that does come up, which I've been seeing in fact with gaming companies, especially in the Web3 space, working Web3 gaming or anything that's has virtual currencies, is that they are going and setting up abroad, but India released the draft gaming regulations last week. I'm not going to comment on those, but what is happening is that these companies that are going and setting up abroad, they are offering Indians the opportunity to bet, and games of chance are prohibited in India when you're playing for states, right? The government cannot do anything to an entity that's set up abroad because I cannot have jurisdiction over someone in another country. But what I can do is block access to the website in India. So ultimately the company does end up losing. I think the new gaming regulations will address this as well. But yeah, there's a lot of activity happening in the space. We do IP structuring. We don't work with patents, but we help structure a company's IP. We work with them on transactions.
NFTs and gaming assets.
Yes.
The new draft regulations of gaming sound very interesting. Do they allow investing into staking or anything, or do they prohibit? Is that what they're doing?
They are trying to prohibit it.
They're trying to prohibit everything. So that's why it is, and therefore, in fact, we got a client recently who wanted to get a gaming platform backed by a couple of casino players, betting on various sporting activities in India. So in fact, we are exploring moving that business out to a third jurisdiction and then bringing that app or the website, how we want to do
But
it.
doesn't Dream 11 and stuff, then betting speculation apps like that also get affected?
That's not betting.
That's not betting. That's fantasy game. You are creating a team and It's a skill set. Therefore, if you look at it,
Skill set.
I mean, okay, let me answer that question. It's very difficult to define what is a skill set and what is a gaming and what is a game of chance. On the one hand, you are allowing horse racing in the heart of Bombay and heart of Pune and various other cities and saying that's a game of skill and therefore betting can be allowed. On the other hand, you are not allowing betting or game of skills on, let's say, cricket match or a soccer match. So, frankly, if you ask us to explain one and explain not be able to explain the other, is going to be a very difficult proposition to make. Supreme Court and various judges have said horse is a game of skill, therefore we are allowing betting in that or thing. But then my replica point is, why isn't a game of cricket or a game of soccer, isn't that a game of skill? I mean, it's a big dichotomy there. Again, if you're asking the right answer, obviously there's no right answer to that. Okay. So again, I mean, how do you take that thing forward? A dream fantasy Dream 11 kind of thing. What they're doing is, you are actually, technically it's a game of skill. For the simple reason you are allowing people to make their own team, and depending on how they perform in that particular match or a series of match, you are getting score out of it. And then you are getting a reward or cash incentive around that. So again, I really don't know, you're betting on somebody else's skill or is it your own skill? I don't know.
But most of the games would qualify as a skill-based game unless they have like dice throwing and probability there. Unless that aspect is not there, it's a game of skill.
How would you explain poker bazi and other games?
There's still probabilities there.
How would you explain poker bazi and other poker game or rummy circle and all exist in this country?
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, those are pure game of chance. I mean,
Yeah, the game of chance cannot qualify.
okay, is poker a game skill set or a game of chance? Let's just say we're out there, about 50 odd people.
It's a game of skill.
Skill.
So why isn't rummy a game of skill?
Skill and chance, both.
So point is, I would look at a different perspective, another person look at a different perspective. And that dichotomy will exist in every game or every betting field. Okay. And we as lawyers, I cannot debate what is right or what is wrong. We are here to be paid and our profession is to interpret the law in the client's favor. Bottom line. If you ask me to do something else, it's difficult. Okay.
It seems sports becomes game of skill. They can qualify as esports or fantasy sports. They're always becoming skill games, skill based, and just in general game. It cannot justify itself as esports or some kind of a skill based game. It is not able to be used. Okay, coming to what you were mentioning about international transfers, it cannot be done with cryptocurrencies and all. Would you think these exchanges are still operating somehow in India? How does that work out? And is there no future at all of these exchanges in India?
Difficult question to answer. Whether how are they operating is still, I think it's a private exchange. I think there has been a move to ban these exchanges, frankly speaking. How successful the government would be is a different question. Because what I can do into private as a barter, the government can't do that because I'm going to ask for the Indian Contract Act. I've not set up a physical exchange per se, it's a virtual exchange. So it's not like the Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange where I can go to a building and issue contract notes and blah blah blah. It's virtual, so it could be, most of the exchanges as far as I know are set up offshore with a virtual dealing room and you deal within India. As far as I know, the CoinEx is based in Singapore or something, if I'm not wrong. Quite a lot of them are based in Singapore or Dubai or other countries. And having India as a major Indian playing in that. Legally, as I mentioned recently, an individual can invest $20,000 per year outside the country. So over a period of time, that becomes a huge money.
Yes.
So once you invested the money doesn't get that money back in. So I can do, so for example, it's every financial year. So suppose I want to invest a huge chunk of money, I can invest some money on March 25th, 2022 and balance 200,000 on April 3rd, 2022 in a span of less than 2 weeks, but technically they are 2 distinct financial years. Correct? It will stop you from investing till 2023 April, but if I've done that, why not?
Yeah. Okay. So, using the allowance that Indians have for around 250K, that's a big amount. We can still invest in outside jurisdiction. But in one slide of yours, you did mention that foreign currency transactions with some foreign goods cannot be done by what? Can you just explain more about what that is?
Thing is, under FEMA, there's a limit of money which you can take out of the country. As I said, about $200,000 to $50,000 for investment purpose and for spending purpose. There's a limit of $25,000, $50,000 you can take out for tourism, and except for film production where the budgets go higher because of whatever. So if you are doing something, suppose you issue a token, which is worth, let's say $100,000, and you transfer that token beyond the limit. So then overseen violation of FEMA. Correct? The issue which the kind of address is the value of that token, if it's not asset backed, is arbitrary.
Yeah.
How would you value a computer algorithm issued token? Or how do you, let's say, value a painting? Right? I mean, today paintings are worth crores if it's an MF signature, and if that signature is not there, I may not pay more than $1,000 for it. Correct? Or even the watch we're wearing, if it's one branded watch, you could probably pay crores for it. If it's an unbranded watch or an HMT watch, I'll not pay 5,000 rupees for it.
Yeah.
Correct? So that valuation, how would you define what the proper value of a token is if it's not asset backed?
It's more speculation.
It is speculative and arbitrary. Correct? So therefore, FEMA and therefore the government of India, rightly or wrongly, I'm not getting the debate of whether they're right or wrong, wants to prevent that. Because it can lead to money laundering, it can lead to cash transfer outside the country without the RBI knowledge and without any regulation.
Yes.
Right? Or it looks very good on paper, Dow, decentralized economy, free movement of things, boss. In reality, that's how your terrorism goes on, your black money gets generated, your cash income gets generated. How are you going to regulate all that? And then if another Kasab incident happens in the city, the first person to blame is the government of India. I mean,
You mentioned Dow, and this has been the biggest use case kind of blockchain technology, smart contracts for people to make DAOs, communities which can be governed by a contract with no entity otherwise, just a contract. What is your take on setting up a DAO, how it can be set up? And you did mention about partnerships. Just briefly address, if you do not legally register a DAO, how does that fall into your legal work?
Indian law does not recognize law as a thing. So the question of registering or forming a DAO in the Indian civil does not, for me as a lawyer, does not exist, to be very honest.
Yeah. I think it's only Wyoming which allows it.
Yes, Wyoming is
That's the only one bank.
state that recognizes.
So that's what I'm saying. For me to advise on DAO formation in India,
Yeah.
I'm the wrong person to ask. Because Indian law does not recognize it, there's no bearing on it. So for me, I mean, that's why in my presentation, the talk which I gave, I did not touch on the topic of DAO. Even though you guys get asked to speak on DAO. I mean, how would you expect a DAO to speak on something which is not recognized, not legal in a country like us?
there are many people who launch DAOs. Wouldn't you say it qualifies as unlimited partnership if it's not
It is
backed by
not.
some entity
It is
like
not a
that?
legal entity in India. Okay. Let's face it. Whatever formation, connotation may use, or whatever it may have inklings to a partnership entity or a proprietary concern, it is not a recognized entity or a business venture in India. Period. Okay.
But can we do the same DAO features with the company structures like the LLP or the private limited? It's just that we just bring the advantages of DAO and wrap with the legal.
Okay.
Can
Let
we
me
do
take
that?
that to next level. That means you're trying to create smart contracts.
Yep.
Entity that governs DAO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, agree.
No, but then what's the whole point? Because DAO is a decentralized structure. How can you bring decentralized structure onto a centralized structure?
Okay.
No, the thing is, you have a DAO, right? And DAO is like, you can say, it's like operated by the consensus, right?
Yeah.
Consensus of
So there are
everybody.
multiple people.
However
Yeah.
how we respond. But then the consensus also allows a particular entity to manage on behalf of them.
So then
Just like a
that's what I'm saying. When
democracy.
you are, I mean, in spirit, you are not following the DAO structure.
However, but whenever you sign up for a DAO, for financial, then you become a part of it as well. I mean, it's like a democracy, just like.
Why? I don't know. See, LLP, you have only few stakeholders who are taking a decision. A DAO, the whole purpose of DAO was a democratic decision making.
Absolutely.
So, how can you create a DAO within an LLP? You can't. You have to decide either one of them.
Let's see the primary four business structures which I discussed in the thing, which are recognized in India. If you remember the features, let's say a company is managed and controlled and all the decisions are taken by the board of directors.
Yes.
Correct.
Does DAO fit into that? Yes or no?
No.
In an LLP, all the decisions are taken by the designated partners.
Yeah.
The partners are designated to take the decision, according to a board of directors thing. Does DAO fall into that?
No.
In a partnership, the partners decide how the decision have to be taken because they have unlimited liability. Does DAO fit into that? No. Now, source of private concern is a single person who is the owner of the property, so DAO cannot be there as sole proprietor.
Apurva, interesting observation. But in an LLP, for example, there is no limitation on number of limited partners. Maybe just 200.
Neither in a private company.
So what he's saying, if we can give the DAO token, governance tokens to all those 200 members,
Wait,
structurally can be a DAO.
getting
Yes,
the
that's
token, getting the token or the partners, the token is not the issue. In an LLP, the decision is made by whom?
So obviously it's for managing partner, no?
The designated partners.
Huh.
In a DAO structure, is by voting and consent.
Everyone.
No, I understand, but I mean just for the argument's sake, I'm saying if an LLP has, let's say, even if it has 50 designated partners, because there's no limit. So,
Wait.
huh.
It's
Question.
more like a private DAO.
One
Kind
second.
of
Let
whatever.
me answer the question. When you are talking about designated partners or board of directors in a private company or a designated partner
LLP, huh?
in an LLP, question of having a board or a designated partner is to make the decision making efficient and quick.
Right?
Okay, so you may have 5,000 partners in an LLP,
Right.
or probably 10,000 shareholders in a private limited company,
Right.
but the designated partners and the
Huh.
board of directors will always be limited. Okay, not to the number which you talk. Normal thing is, and we can double check that, ranges between 2 to 5 or 7 people.
No, I understand. So practically that is what is happening. I mean, obviously because that's the disadvantage of a DAO. That with so much decentralization, the decision making goes for a toss. But I'm saying, if just for argumentative sake, because technically if there is no limit on the designated partners in a LLP,
There is no limit on the partners.
Acha, so there's a
You
limit
can
on
make a
designated
legal
partners.
wrapper basically, which you can tokenize the rights of everyone who's holding the token.
See.
Voting rights are on the.
Okay, now let me just take off from what you're saying. I'm sorry to stop you. The various kinds of tokens which can be issued, and let me give you example of something. Some tokens are what are called utility tokens. some are voting tokens, some
Yeah.
are participating tokens. So depending on the kind of token you issue to somebody, you will have that corresponding right in that entity, asset or whatever for which you're issuing the token. Correct? So then we'll have to
Yeah.
design a token
Yeah.
which will probably suit an LLP or a company formation and give the price of that token then will obviously be different.
Yeah.
Okay. So as of right now it's difficult to discuss that unless you are doing a case study or in what context are you going to
Correct.
place that.
Correct.
Because if you talk about utility tokens, it will be on
So I understand. So obviously, if it's a DAO, then we are only talking about governance token because it's all about decision making. It's not about retail.
Voting rights basically.
Huh, voting
voting
rights.
as a governance token,
Yeah.
then that will cause a premium. Then you also have to decide how many of such tokens can you issue per
Yeah,
entity.
correct. So all
So if
those
you have
factors.
already decided your number of tokens, governance tokens issue, is coming back to limited number of people making a decision.
Yeah, I understand.
Then,
I get it. No,
so then
obviously,
the purpose of DAO as a, having 100 people decide, it loses purpose,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So your
So
answer
there
is,
will always be a limitation. You're right.
there will always be limitation, yeah? Whether you follow the DAO or the normal procedure. Because you are going to issue limited governance tokens.
I think even a lot of DAOs are also realizing this flaw in the model because a lot of DAOs are also having some kind of a centralized control nowadays.
Yes, it's natural to happen.
Because otherwise, it will be a chaos.
Yes.
Let me just, summarize this. I don't know how many of you people have read this book called Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Okay.
Okay. It was on democracy.
Yeah.
It started off with everybody revolting and saying,
Some rights.
okay, all people, all animals are equal.
Yeah.
Later on, when it came to governance and all animals are equal, but some are more equal. Okay. So ultimately, what we guys are trying to answer, and you guys are answering yourself, in DAO structure, all are equal, but some are more equal.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then we are back to square number one. Or what we talk about LP or private company or what is structure talking about?
Yeah.
I think DAO are just a kind of an old wine in a new bottle. Essentially, the earlier what used to be crowdfunding and all those things has moved to a DAO definition now, technically speaking.
Technically, so as you rightly said, we can keep debating around it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it will come back to a few people having control
Yeah,
and
it has to.
issues.
Yeah, it has
So I think that debate itself is a non-starter for me.
Do you think people who manage, let's say there are entities, let's say Politburo, let's call it a Politburo that is managing that DAO. Okay. Can they, by virtue of smart contract, can they, at the end of the day, law asks who's to blame? Something has happened, now tell us who's to blame. The point is that. So can they blame it on the network itself? Because at the end of the day, it's a smart, it ran through smart.
Let me ask you another question before I answer that question. Some companies, I won't take the name of the company, and we all know what I'm speaking about, have started the concept of driverless cars. If an accident happens with that car, who should be blamed?
That's a, yeah,
So that's the
You can't blame
creator
AI.
of the.
You can't blame
You
it.
can't blame a non-entity, yeah.
You can't blame it.
AI doesn't have agency, so someone else.
Okay. Today, let's take it to another level. If a DAO affects your life personally in some way or the other, who are you going to blame? Let's not talking there. I'm giving concrete examples. Or where are you going to get compensation from? Which entity?
The issuer of the token.
Okay. Today, to some extent, the existing laws have tried to answer that. I'll give you an example. In Companies Act, let's take for example, if the company creates an offense, I can't put the company behind the bars, right, for a criminal offense. The Companies Act mandates that you have a designated director who is responsible for XYZ offenses of the company. So that person is held responsible individually. Okay. So for every DAO, sooner or later, it will be regulated by this country. Maybe 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 10 years online. But then for every DAO created, and I can say that very much with confidence, you would have to appoint 2 or 3 individuals who would be the representative DAO, who will be held liable for any misdemeanor of that entity DAO in whatever form or the other. Because if you are having a corresponding gain, you also have to have a corresponding loss.
Apurva, I have one question. I'm going back to basics. We've got conversation covered that since the current regulation is in, so we cannot set up companies. There's something do's and don'ts, and there are some countries like Dubai, Singapore, we can set up company. The company can start offering services back in India. Tomorrow something goes wrong, right? And for example, there's an Indian guy only to set up, just to have an arbitrage there, set up something in Dubai. And but the offering is coming back to India. How does it go like that? Tomorrow something goes wrong.
So something goes wrong, like you can say Indian national, for a company let's say based in Dubai, I have to go to Dubai, file a claim with the Dubai relevant courts and recover money because that entity is registered in Dubai. Because that person jurisdiction is Dubai. So that is my only escape route. And or the other option is if you have an arbitration clause, international arbitration, you go use that as a mechanism for dispute resolution.
In a similar manner, so if talking about the arbitrage, so if I have a company in Dubai, registered company in Dubai, I'm selling USDT in South Africa, so I'm doing some arbitrage over there, I'm then selling it to Bahrain currency, and then getting back to India. So how would that, am I going to be legally, what do you say, am I going to go to jail if I do that, or it's okay? I mean, like, in the end, I'm just making money out of the arbitrage. Where do I pay?
Depends on what kind of arbitrage they are doing. If it's allowed under the SCRA, the Security Contract Regulation Act, then it's permissible. If it's not allowed under SCRA, then you cannot do it. So depending on what kind of arbitrage, in what commodity, what kind of fuel or whatever it is, you will be able to advise you further back. Because certain kind of arbitrage and certain kinds of things is not allowed. Okay. So depending on what kind of arbitrage and stuff you're talking about, we can discuss that offline.
And also the people who are getting paid in USDT or cryptocurrency in India now, since after the lockdown, a lot of people who are like getting their salary paid in USDT. So what they do is like they do P2P.
So let me answer that question. If it's an Indian company hiring an Indian national, they cannot pay in any other currency apart from Indian currency. Okay.
They do.
It's illegal.
Exactly.
Okay. So if it's a foreign entity hiring an Indian in the foreign jurisdiction, it can pay in the whatever that foreign currency jurisdiction it is. Okay. But if that foreign entity has a branch in India and having through that branch in India, again it has to pay through the Indian currency. Okay. So don't expect that if I, Apurva Grower, I'm having my own firm, hires you, I can pay in USD, I have to pay in INR.
And I think again in that case the entire VDA and all those things will be applicable to you. So whenever you use that USDT or wherever that thing, you have to pay the tax on that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know, like, since it's in stable coin, even if it's stable coin, it's a cryptocurrency.
Even either.
Either way.
Any cryptocurrency is now on the VDA. Simple.
But the tax is there's on the capital gain, right? So
So that's what I'm saying. So if he,
but he is the same remuneration in USD.
even then, so whenever he will sell it, if he makes any profit out of it, even then, except the cost price of the USDT, he will have to pay the taxes accordingly. And the company will have to pay TDS. I don't know how the TDS will work out.
because it's directly not coming to my bank account. So
Yeah, it's coming on your smart wallet.
Yeah, so like if
But
I'm doing P2P,
Someone will have to make a representation to the government, because tomorrow if government catches you, they may say that you have not paid the TDS or you may not have
that
paid
is
the
in
TDS.
violation
Huh.
of the FEMA and other regulations.
Yeah.
Okay, which I will discuss when I was discussing FEMA. If you are using foreign currency from an Indian entity
Yeah.
out of form, whatever, it is in violation of FEMA.
Yeah, because you are not reporting into tax, so it will catch
Not
you.
reporting to RBI or getting permission to do that. So frankly, I would say keep away from it.
Okay, are we open to questions now?
Yeah, we're pretty much already.
We are already open.
We're already.
So,
Can't get more.
the biggest question which I came here for is, how are we able to understand the blockchain on real assets? I have talked with 10 lawyers, no one is able to give me an answer that can tokenization happen on real assets?
On real estate or
Real estate, unlisted equities,
Okay.
solar assets, it's not happening. I mean, I've read so many laws, talked to so many lawyers, everyone is giving me a blank answer that if you're doing it at your own risk. India में नहीं कर सकते आप.
okay, just to answer that question, in fact, I clearly mentioned blockchain and crypto technically is not regulated in this country. So, to doing it in India is at your own peril and risk. First question. However, if you want to do it, tokenization of real estate is possible, and in fact, Rohan, Surya, I, and
No,
Saurabh.
so even I went on Rizal
One
website.
second, let me answer that
Sorry,
question.
sorry.
Legally I've been advising them on a model to create this tokenization of more on real estate rather than on other platforms. And if it was on real estate, it can be copied and pasted and modified for other assets. There are some hitches that were not implemented as yet, including registration and transfer property from one person to another using that tokenization process because of the government regulatory issues. So that's a process we have to come to terms with. But yes, there has been some movement in that front. To what extent we can't disclose that right now because I'm not foolproof. I don't want to.
So, Apurva, this is two things. One is the opinions that I have got, I love to share with you on offline basis. So maybe we can discuss it offline also. Second is, I know that there are multiple platforms who are now trying to do it. Be it Riser, be it RealX, be it AltDRX, right? So everyone, be it this one, Mars Capital, who is trying to say that okay, we are tokenizing unlisted equities, right? And you can invest with as low as 5,000 rupees. None of them are clearly coming out with what the laws are covering on them.
Okay.
None of them
Let
are.
me answer that question to you. All the examples which you gave me, they have not issued tokens.
That's what I'm saying. They have not implemented it so far.
Correct.
They're just announcing it.
They're announcing it. None of them
Yeah.
have issued tokens against any of the asset class which you mentioned.
Correct.
Okay. I have personally spoken to 2-3 of the platforms
Right.
and invested in some of the platforms just to see the end user
Correct.
experience, not
Correct.
that it would make me enough money for that investment.
Correct.
But none of them are into what we call fractional ownership or issue of tokens or anything the way it should be. Okay, so those examples you gave me are actually the wrong examples. Okay, so that's why as I said earlier, we can have this conversation offline. I don't want to take the larger group time on it. I know these 3 people along with me, I've been advising for the last few months on this issue. Therefore, I have sort of in-depth analysis on the tokenization of real estate more than tokenization of any other platform. I've been very honest about that. There is still a lot of work to go in it. We'll discuss that offline.
So, because my lawyer has very distinctly told me and he has given me a whole opinion that how tokenization on real estate बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता. That is totally against law.
Why? One second.
Change your lawyer.
Change your lawyer. Tokenization हो सकता है. The ways and means of doing it.
Yeah.
The ways and means of getting smart contracts. The only challenge is restriction of the at the sub-registrar's office. That's a procedural thing, not a substantive law. So there's a distinction between substantive law and a procedural law. That's something which you need to incumbent or follow the procedural law, get them to come and register that stuff so that there's no issue. Substantive wise, it is possible. Let's stop this conversation here because I think
Yeah.
in the larger interest of larger group, we'll have this
But
conversation
coming to
offline.
the conclusion there, don't you think the tokenization based on actual assets is actually more legal than based on unbacked and nothing at all?
I wouldn't see either legal or illegal.
Yeah.
Whether backed by asset or not backed by asset.
If you're using just the ledger for just management of
But
representation of
surprisingly, the government under the VDA Act, it says that if your token or crypto is actually backed by asset, it will not come under VDA. That's a very good point that the government has taken.
That's where
Yes, so it's not a VDA, so then it's normal. It's a
No,
normal.
that's
But then again, as he said, the only issue is that then token or blockchain will not be treated as a legal proof of the ownership in India.
Because until registration doesn't happen.
Whatever.
So that's the issue which we are tackling. Secondly, if we are having, let's take it under the Security Contract Regulation Act, SCRA, which I discussed briefly in my presentation. If I am using a product out of an asset, that technically becomes a derivative,
Yeah. Correct.
which is recognized by the SCRA. So a token which is asset backed can technically be
You're right. It could become security asset.
a derivative which in turn becomes a security.
Right.
Okay, so that's how we have to train and that's how we are trying to work it on. So that's why I said a token is possible. Substantive law I will say challenge is the procedural law which we are yet to overcome. And that's why I would like to say just stop this area of discussion. We can take it offline to my office or wherever you want. That's not an issue, but I think the last interest of time.
Yes, let's see that. So coming to the final question is, Anuradha, you were also mentioning, what do you think is the application of blockchain to even change the legal industry itself, or it can innovate in that? What can be domains or what using solutions can be, probably with digital signatures or with the contract itself?
There are a couple of solutions, but obviously, like we just spoke about, registration of documents is an issue. So, if you take my trademark example, if you are trying to evidence use, that's not something that needs to be registered or there's no formal process. Basically, for trademarks, for example, if someone contests my application and I'm trying to give evidence that I have been using this, my evidence could be an invoice, it could be an email that I sent to my partner where I mentioned my trademark, it could be anything, it could be an Instagram post. Okay, so blockchain in those cases works if I can sort of code my brand into a smart contract. I think a tech expert would be able to advise on how to do that. But basically, where it provides a timestamp, that's what helps when it comes to blockchain technology. But when it comes to anything where a document has to be registered or a legal procedure has to be followed, that is where things get a bit more.
In fact, just to add to what she's saying, I think the media was reported sometime back. I've received the last 4 or 5 days. I think there's an AI legal robot which is actually fighting a case in the courts in China.
Oh wow, in China.
So it actually does away with lawyers like us,
Yeah.
litigating lawyers, I would say.
I think there are also courts now, there are also countries now where basically when you serve someone and tell them that they are being court, you can do that through an NFT, I believe. It's not happening in India. I do not foresee it happening in India anytime soon. But that's something that's happening abroad as well.
And with regards to ownership, and recognizing the ledger's status as the current status of ownership as well, if we added in the memorandum of association itself that the token or ownership is managed through the ledger, and the latest status on the ledger is the representation of the ownership, wouldn't that give some weight to it, or is that not a fact? That's
Because procedurally, the restaurant companies have to be informed of that data. So it's not only the, okay, let me just take a step back. Even in property and even in the companies or wherever you guys own, there are 2 levels of change of ownership. One is in the company's books. That can happen through blockchain or what of technology they use, because the company will recognize it's not an issue. Second is at the government or the statutory level. And unless the government or the statutory doesn't recognize blockchain as a tool to effect such transfers, you still have to go by the legal procedure as prescribed in the relevant law and get that transfer done. Okay, so that's why when I mentioned about fractional ownership properties and substantive law, yes, I made create a token, but I still have to go to the registrar's office to get that token registered. But that's the when at the statute level, at the government level, the change of ownership will happen. Little louder, I can't hear you.
I'm saying my question was that when you spoke about tokenization, so we have seen that a lot of our institutional bodies also having to come in support of such ideas. Like we don't see CII coming in and publishing a paper on this, or you don't hear NASCOMs or even the ASSOCHAMs coming out. So how can we involve these bodies? Because the reason why I'm asking is, when you have the biggie players also in the game, then it creates a kind of understanding to the government as well. Now I don't want to bring the real estate thing up because it was very heated, I could see, but when I remember I had gone to someone to just meet him and pitch him about this concept, I had a lot of developers threatening me that they will kill me if I ever try to ever do this. So the mafia in this industry is very high. And I'm not kidding some normal developers, I'm one of the biggest players in the industry. So this is the kind of aspect we are facing also in this space, that you want to do something but they don't want to make it that transparent too. They want to hide some things also in the dark. Like it can't be black and white, there needs to be something grey. That's what they will often say. So I met Eknath Shinde about this talk. He was like, "Me kahi karu shakar nahi." I get votes from these people because these builders build these houses for the people. The people vote them. They get power, so they can't do anything to destroy or
They
disturb.
can't do, don't want to.
Correct. That's
a better word.
Yes. So that's why I said, like, I also am seeing, like, trying to understand what real life use cases could be built in this space, because it's a very big space. You have DeFi, you have NFTs for preventing counterfeiting, but I am not seeing the biggest entrepreneur talking about, like Anand Mahindra or even some of the best Twitter active entrepreneurs. They don't comment anything, sir.
They wouldn't also. Okay, especially in a country like India, let me be very honest, and we can be off the cuff for this. The middle class does not exist for the politicians today.
Yes.
We don't go out and vote. We have 30 of us. How many have voted in the last elections in the country?
So even if you voting, it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Middle class for them does not exist. It's either super rich who fund their election campaigns will do that, or the other class who actually vote for them. So unless they don't see an actual compulsion to do it, nothing is going to move. So keep selling, let it build the grey area, exploit to the maximum and work towards it.
Also understand one thing, that the Indian government, if you listen to what finance minister keeps saying, that cryptocurrency is bad. RBI says keep bad. So none of the big industrials, all industry houses will ever oppose that move. Because they do not want to go against the finance ministry or the PM or whatever. Because India will the finance ministry is telling the whole world to ban crypto. It's the other way around. So they will never go against that thing. So I don't think it will happen.
If they have too much to lose.
Yeah.
When somebody recognizes ownership or IP for a particular NFT or let's say token, any digital asset, what do you recognize? Do you recognize its essence or you recognize the code? What exactly? How lost is it?
Sorry, did you say do you recognize the
You
essence?
recognize the essence, like it's a creativity or the content, whatever. If it is
The
art,
value.
Okay, so are you talking about an NFT in particular and the asset attached to an NFT?
let's take NFT. Let's take example of NFT. It's an image, NFT of an image. Now there is an actual image, there is an NFT of it. Now I have bought an NFT, and let's say I have a copyrighted. I have also rights for the original one. So I was earlier working with an artist in this. So let's say if I have an NFT and all the rights to it, all the intellectual property. So what exactly the law is recognizing? Whether it's recognizing that art or whether recognizing it's a digital code at the end of it. So is it recognizing that code sequence? The exact sequence, because it can also be brought under intellectual property.
No, so like I said, an NFT itself is not intellectual property. It's basically just tokenized code on the blockchain network, right? But the asset that is attached to it, whether it's a physical asset or a digital asset, that's where the rights lie. So if you purchase an NFT of a film, okay, from an NFT marketplace, it doesn't mean you get ownership over the film. You'll only get rights to probably watch the film. You may get rights to allow someone to borrow that NFT and watch the film. That's what marketplaces are doing now as well. But you don't have rights to display the film. You don't have rights to perform anything in that film in public. But those rights can be given away as well. If you look at the luxury industry, okay, Gucci has created a metaverse on Roblox. It's a metaverse platform where you can basically enter the Gucci world. You can take a photo with Miley Cyrus. She's an ambassador of Gucci. You can buy a Gucci digital handbag as an NFT, but that does not mean that you get ownership of an actual Gucci bag. If you're buying an NFT of a Gucci bag, you don't get a physical Gucci bag with it, but Gucci can decide to give you the bag with it. So that's what a phygital NFT is. Jewelry brands are doing it now as well, where basically you will buy an NFT and then you will also get a necklace with that NFT. It's attached to the necklace, but that has to be contractually parted with. It's not something that's automatic. And the rights will exist in that underlying code.
And can the ownership of these NFT for the content rights be transferred without what you was mentioning, the government side of the ledger being updated? You just transfer the rights. That
Yeah, you
works
have to see
on the-
if you are assigning any rights in anything, you have to pay some stamp duty. So you can have an agreement where stamp duty is paid in that agreement, because if you assign intellectual property rights, stamp duty is required to be paid.
But for every transfer as well, we have to register with the government again? Okay. It can't be just.
Sorry, for secondary sales, it's not very easy to do that. It's not possible to do that. Because that secondary sale may not even be happening in your country, right? That's why these NFT marketplaces are setting up abroad. If the NFT marketplace is in Singapore, but I as a creator give my rights to that NFT marketplace, saying, okay, you make NFTs out of that, you sell it to whoever, I will get a royalty from that first sale. I may even get a royalty from subsequent sales. Mostly that's how royalties work. But the rights that I am giving to the NFT marketplace, if I am saying you will make an NFT of my film, the agreement for that licensing agreement, ideally some stamp duty should be paid. But when the NFT marketplace is selling it further, that marketplace is in Singapore, may sell the NFT to someone in the US, who may sell it to someone in Australia. The Indian government has no involvement with that. Sorry.
Okay, then that's all. Let's thank our speakers. Let's head over to the snacks and networking.
Hi, I'm Apurva, founding partner News Legal. It was a privilege for me to come and attend this event today as a speaker and to speak on the legal issues related to blockchain and how to start a new business related to blockchain. I was surprised and intrigued by such a large community being present in Bombay and the kind of interaction I had with people at least 10 to 12 years younger to me. I'm happy to be a participant and wish Time Lab and BSV a long and good future, and would love to attend more of these events in the future.